All right. This is Totally Awesome Friends of Jen with the beautiful Kate Arnold.
That's
And,
very sweet. Thank
oh,
you.
and this is where I get to interview ladies that are leading with their heart, causing a positive ripple effect into the world. So Kate and I actually met via the Facebook, which I love. I love being connected with amazing people, and this was an instant that happened. And Kate is a financial coach. So she has a business called Balanced, and I love this. So what Kate does is simplify our money and get us to really understand our money so that we can have an amazing and balanced life. So welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks for inviting me today.
I'm so excited to talk about this. I'm so fired up about it. So I love starting all of these off with first impressions and impact. And you have had quite a big impact into my life. And
Oh,
yeah, fun, right? Because
yeah.
one little conversation. So my first impressions of you, because you never know when you're introduced to somebody via somebody else, you just never know how that's going to go. Instantly, I felt like we connected.
Wonderful.
And I felt, and I'm a really good judge of character and what I call it juju, so energy, good vibes. You got
That's great.
And my impression of you too, I always say this, like, I feel like sex and money is all around us, but it's something that we don't talk about.
Yes.
And money and talking about our money and really talking about our money and our financial situation is intimate.
For
It,
sure.
and
Yeah.
what you are is just this, yeah, like I could tell you everything.
Well, that I'm glad you could put your trust in me, Jen. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And the impact from our conversation has really got me into money. And it's
Good.
I noticed with my own coaching clients, I know it's for my own life. And it's something over the next year that I'm going to be diving into because I think it's so, 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 so important. I feel like for a lot of us, it's the ostrich syndrome, you know?
For sure. Well, you mentioned sex and money, and I had someone who owns a spa tell me that her clients will talk to her about sex, but they will not talk about money. So you're right on with that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Great.
And
Good.
you are amazing. And I love hearing origin stories. So how did you get to where you are today?
Oh, sure. I'll tell you. I used to work in the not-for-profit world for most of my career, and I was in a role that was fairly demanding in my last position. And I had my kids were school aged and needing a little bit more of me. So I was feeling pulled in two directions, and I made a decision to leave the work world and come back and support my family from home to just kind of calm things down here one of my kids kind of needed me a little bit more maybe than a lot of kids do. And so one of my goals in being at home was to get our money under control.
Yeah.
And this was about 7 years ago. And so we had always had a budget on paper. We always sort of had laid out, well, this is our intentions to what to do with our money. But we struggled kind of bridging that paper to the practical. So it's all written down, but how do we actually use that? And we were struggling with that. And so I decided I've got to figure that out. I have the time now. And so that's what I did. And I felt really great about it. I was feeling really good about how we were managing our money, my husband and I, and how the stress had been reduced, how our frustration maybe with each other in the finance department had been reduced. And it just seemed to be rolling along now. Full disclosure, when I left my paid role, coincidentally, he rolled into a position that paid a lot more. And so we had a big income. And I will admit, life is easier, we found anyway, with more money, but it still had to be managed. And so that's kind of what drew my curiosity, was to find out, how are other people doing this? Like, we have a larger income, but we still have to pay close attention. We can't just go buy anything. And so I started asking my friends who were in similar kind of situations and incomes to say, how are you doing this? Like, why had I not learned this before? Why does it seem like such a big secret? And I had figured something out that was, really working well for us. And what I learned is that people didn't have it figured out, just like me. People hadn't learned from their parents. They hadn't picked it up along the way. They weren't doing as well, maybe, as most of us think others are doing with their money. And so even a friend of mine who had a similar income, she said she held her breath when it came time to pay the bills. And I thought, gosh, that's just you don't have to live like that, especially with a larger income. So I started looking around, found a mentor in the field doing something similar. I started thinking I could help people with this because I figured this out. And she helped me along the way. I got connected with a company called The Money Finder. I did a certified cash flow specialist program. And in November 2015, I launched my business. So that's kind of how it all came together for me. I never expected really for myself to do anything with money. I was in not-for-profit and never expected to do anything on my own. But here I am almost 3 years later and really happy with my business.
And I love it. And that was like, when we started talking, I was like, yes, you're filling this gap of the how-to.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot out there. There's a lot out there about money mindset, manifestation, things like that, like all this. And then I was like, yes, this is, and I think about what I do in my own coaching, and I get with the financial facts. So just really getting the head out of the sand to kind of look at your finances.
Yes.
And you take it, you're like my missing gap.
Right.
Like from that point, okay, we know what to do with it. Now you kind of go into it and you figure out the strategy of how the paper to the practical.
Right. Yeah. There's so much around money for most of us. By age 7, most of us have formed a relationship with money, and it is based on what we see of the adults in our lives and the relationship they have with money. And that convolutes a lot of things. Most of the time it's a challenging relationship. And so there's often pieces to sort out with that. And that is one side of the puzzle. And then the other side, as you mentioned, Jen, is kind of what I have. It's the tools of, okay, now we're ready. How do we actually practically do what we say we want to do? And so I think there's kind of two pieces there. And you have the one piece, I have the other. So I think it's when people can connect both, it really changes their lives.
Yeah. So great. And like, as I listen to you, I kind of get like a fire in my belly about, why aren't we learning this in school? Mm-hmm. Like, we have math class. Why don't we put into a practical sense and start learning this stuff in school, and like investments and taxes? Every single time I do my taxes, I'm like, why weren't there classes in school to teach us how to do our taxes?
Right.
Anyway, so I get kind of fired up about that. I'm like, doesn't that make sense? Like
and there's so much information out there, and we talk about financial literacy. And that's, again, just one piece of the puzzle. I think you can be financially literate and still not be able to find those tools that will help you to manage your day-to-day money, right? There are financial advisors out there who do investments. There are tax planners. There are bookkeepers and accountants. And there's a lot of them that still don't know how to manage what's coming in, what's going out, and what to do with the leftover.
Yeah.
So I think it is unfortunate that we miss that piece in school, but I'm not sure there's a lot of people out there who can teach it, right? It's just not something we talk about. So.
And that's what I love when I meet somebody like you that has, seen the need in your own life, seen the gap in your own life, has done the work, and really dove into it. And then was like, oh my goodness, more people, like, look at what this has brought to my own life. I need to share this. Mm-hmm. I call it light work. Like, I really think this work is really, really important. And that's what this group is all about, the ladies that lead. And it's fine ladies like you that are doing that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Yes, that helping others is what has driven me all through my life. And this is just a place where I feel like I can really do that.
Huge. Okay, so I always ask this, and this is in the ladies that lead: brag, offer, need. So,
okay.
three of the hardest questions sometimes. So what's a brag? What is something you're really proud of right now? What's the success that you'd like to celebrate right now with us?
It's funny. I was thinking about that, Jen, and a brag, and I was thinking, oh, I'm trying to think of things that I did that, whatever. But really, right now, my brag is that I'm changing people's lives. That lights me up. Yes. And my clients are telling me that. My recent conversation with a client who told me, and they told their financial advisor that working with me had changed their life. And so I feel like I've had the courage to go ahead and start this business. And I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not an accountant. I do have a diploma in business, but really my background is psychology and sociology. So I found the courage to start something that I know people need, and I'm changing lives. So that's my brag. That's what I feel most proud of.
I'm getting tingles. Yeah, that's a pretty good brag. That's pretty big.
Yeah, it feels good.
And what do you offer?
So I offer a one-to-one program, and my program is a 6-month program, and I do an initial assessment for people at a high level to understand where they are currently. So I just to clarify, I don't do investments. I don't sell insurance. I don't do bookkeeping or tax planning or even retirement planning. I have lots of great financial advisors in my life that I refer to, people that care just as much about their clients as I do, that I can send people to for those things. But initially, when someone's working with me, we do that high level assessment. And we look at those expenses generally that are fixed that you wouldn't change, and we break those down into a few categories and look at the percentage of after-tax income that you're using in those categories, and then we look at what's left over. So I don't do an audit of the spending, which often that's the first piece of advice we get when we think about managing our finances, is add up all the things you spent. I really start with a solution-based approach and say, where are we at now? So if you have 25% of your after-tax income left over after you've paid out all those things that are what we like to say fixed, things that are not easy to change, like your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your loans, anything like that. If you've got 25% left over, for things that like your groceries, your clothing, your activities, any kids' activities, your pets, that kind of stuff, it means you're likely able to manage your day-to-day money without getting on that debt treadmill. Right. So that's kind of the initial assessment, what we look at. And then, is there ability there to be what we say is cash flow positive? Meaning, do you have more coming in than has to go out? Or are you cash flow negative? Are all of your fixed expenses taking up your money so that it's very difficult to live without debt? And then I do a benchmark calculation of someone's net worth. So we look at what do you own versus what you owe, what's that number? And then after we're done, at the end of our 6 months together, we want to recalculate that just to make sure it's going up, not down. Yeah. And I do look at your debt ratio as well, and I give a quick look and some feedback over, and I hand that back in a report. Try to turn that around within a week of getting your information. And then within 3 weeks of that, we have a full plan together in the hands of the client. And we stick together for the next 5 months, every 2 weeks, meeting together to make sure that the plan is right, that the numbers are right, we make any adjustments along the way, and that people fully understand the strategies that we've put together so that they can, after those 6 months, hopefully become independent of me and take that plan and continue using it and making it functional enough that when there's changes in their lives, they can just insert those into the plan and off they go. So that's what I offer.
And what's the investment of that?
The investment is $24.95. So yes.
And I bet so many people are just listening to this right now and listening you describe this and being like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Like I want to really say this to you. You represent this missing gap. And I'm so excited that you're doing this work. And
Thanks, Jen. That's exactly why I did it, because it was a gap missing for me. I was perplexed, like, how are other people doing this? Why am I not figuring this out? And then I realized, you're so right. The how-to is what's missing.
yeah, and that investment, like it's a chunk of change that to transform your whole money journey, your whole
Yeah.
money narrative, like
Well,
like
I find on average $2,000 a month that people don't realize they're spending, whether that's going to interest on investments or just out of pocket to things that they're not aware of. And we redirect that back to the things that my client values. And so that's a pretty quick return on investment at $24.95. And in fact, this year I had a client, we'd worked together last year, and 12 months later, they contacted me to tell me that they had paid off $80,000 in debt. So that was above and beyond what we had actually set out. They got so motivated that they'd gone above and beyond what our plan had been. So the return on investment's pretty quick.
yeah. And I love that. I love finding really intelligent businesses. And so, even a friend of mine, she goes into restaurants and she reduces the waste, but
Yeah.
increases profits. And I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yes.
Your investment is perfect for the return of investment, and like if you popped up some case studies of all your past clients, just so people realize, like, this is an investment up front and this is how much I'm going to make from this investment. I always
Mm-hmm.
say, like, it's like little risk, massive reward.
Right.
This is the type of investments you want to make, and that's what you offer, and I'm excited.
That's right. And I do my best when I do a plan for someone to incorporate that fee. I do offer that, financing over the period of time we work together, but I do my best to incorporate that fee into their cash flow so that they're not putting it on credit.
Good.
So that when we're done working together, there's another $440 that's just going right back into their cash flow because they've already been pulling it aside. So
brilliant. Okay, so what do
thank you.
Let's
So what I love to do is grow my business by word of mouth, because I want to work with people who have heard from somebody else that I've worked with that it's been beneficial for them. And so I need my name out there, the name of my business out there. I need people to hear about me. So if people see this and think that there's a connection for them and they want to contact me, that's great. Or if they hear that our interview and think, oh, I know someone who really could benefit from that, then please just share. That's my need, is just to share what you're hearing if it resonates with you.
Yeah, and share this video because I'll pop it up on my Facebook page, Ladies That Lead, everything. I'm going to put you on my website as well, and all your links in your bio. And so it might not be resonating right now for somebody right now, but it might keep it in mind for later.
Right.
So you offer a 15-minute just phone call.
Sure.
Phone call.
Absolutely. Yes. Before I work with someone, I want to be sure that my services are right for them, because if they're not, it's not good for me or them. So absolutely a free 15, 30-minute consultation before we would ever get started on something, to just be sure that I can help them and that they're finding that my services are what they want.
Yeah, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Easy. It's like a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so what are some advice that you would give yourself, a few years back, or somebody coming into, I always look at businesses like this, it's like people coming into their own and spreading what they're meant to spread in this world. What would be some advice to your former self or somebody like you in your shoes right now?
Yeah.
Or like past shoes?
Well, I think for people sort of coming into their own, as you described, Jen, there's all kinds of advice for you out there on what to do. And I think just getting quiet and understanding what you want to do, because we know what we need to do. We need help, but we also really often know what we need. So not getting caught up in what we should do, but just making sure that you stick to your own beliefs and ideas. I think that's really important. And one of the pieces of advice I hear out there is, maybe you're never ready, but you should just start. And I don't know if I agree with that, actually. Like, for me, there was a point where I wasn't ready, and then there was a point where I was ready. So if if I had no education or background in what I was doing, I wouldn't be ready, and I wouldn't advise someone to just fling themselves out there if they're not feeling that pieces together. But you may never feel completely like you're ready to start, but then you do, there is a point where you do have to start. But just being confident that when you're ready, and not pushing things faster because you hear the common advice that just do it, right? So I think it's okay to not fling yourself out there before you're ready, which seems contrary to popular advice. And the second piece I would say is find a mentor or two. And something I resisted, but really benefited from once I got my head around it, was find a coach.
So you're so amazing.
Right.
And I can resonate to both of those points. I want to share with you. So I learned about coaching 7 years before I started my own business in it. And I remember when I was introduced to coaching, and it was when I was living in London, England, and I was still working as a massage therapist. I did a weekend-long course, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. And I knew it. Like, I knew this was it. Then I took 7 years to learn. I took 7 years to do the work.
Good for you.
Right? So I could have jumped in. I could have done, quick coaching course and jumped right in, and it would have been okay. And I would have learned along the way. But I love my journey. Like, man, did I learn in that 7 years. And I was almost like laying the foundation. When I took action, I still wasn't ready.
Right, right.
But I got into a saturation point, and I got to a tipping point where I could no longer not do it. Mm-hmm. And I remember doing it. The first thing I did is find a mentor.
Yes.
I knew how important that was. And it's so important to find a mentor or find a coach. And whenever, like I always say, like, my coaching is really to take you to 2.0, and whenever I'm chatting with somebody, they're like, oh, thank you. Because it's like, it's not a common conversation. And when you're taking yourself to the next level, who do you go for that?
Right.
It's uncharted waters. And I have techniques for that. It makes sense, Right. So anyway, love that advice.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know why I resisted so much. I thought I could just do it all on my own, but you're right. Working with a coach, not only was she knowledgeable in the areas of business that I needed to learn, but she was a mirror for me and a sounding board. And she was not as emotionally invested as, say, my family members, right? So she really could guide me in a way that no one else close to me could. So I would recommend it. When you're ready, I'd recommend for sure finding that coach that you fit with to bring you along.
Unbiased perception. So it's clear. And yeah, good on you. I love it. So fun. Okay. So let's get down to the nitty gritties. Okay. Let's get down to the how-tos. If you could say somebody's like right now, like, oh my goodness, what's one thing that I can do today to just empower myself around money? Is there any advice you can give there? And just something little. And then also just the how-tos to, I want to work with Kate. How do I do it?
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to say just something little, because often we say, you just Google budgeting and you'll get 3 simple ways, 5 simple ways, 7 simple ways. And although I can boil it down for someone and hand it back to them so it's simple, the journey isn't necessarily simple. So, it's a challenge to kind of give that one piece of advice. One of the things that I don't do, that's maybe easier to say, is and common out there is, often the advice is write everything down that you spend. I find that's laborious. It's defeating. It's humiliating. It's not practical. And so, like I said, I start with a solution-based approach. So probably what I would say, if you're wanting today to just get started, 2 things. One, just get familiar with your money. So if you online bank, just sit down, take a deep breath, give yourself a time, just say maybe 10 minutes, because for most of us, it's fearful. to
Yeah.
have a look. So just, get your coffee or whatever and just say, I'm just going to look at it, and just look at your bank accounts. Just view them. Just start to get a familiarity with what's going on.
Yeah.
Look at how much money's coming in, look at how much is going out, just to get a sense of who your money is, really. Get to know it. And that's just a starting point, I think, that gets you over the hump of fear. So
Yes.
the more you know your money, the less fear you have.
Yes. And I
So,
actually noticed that from one of my biggest money mentors. And I lived with her for like 6 months, and she has her own business, and she's just a badass. She's just a badass, and like and really well off financially. Every single morning, I noticed she would make coffee, open up her laptop, and look at her finances every
mhm.
single morning. And I was like, "Oh, is that why you're so rich?" Like, and like, and it just, for me, it was like, yeah, because she's getting over that fear.
Yes.
And she's just so, like, when you get with the facts, then you know what you can and cannot do. So she just
Yeah.
knew where her money was, how much money, where, like, she just was in control of it, so it didn't
Hmm.
control her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when I do a plan with someone, we really go through that process together. I do a lot of the background work, and I present it to the clients in a way that's simple with the strategies. So when you just sit and look at it, you're not necessarily making any changes by doing that, except getting over that fear. And so that small step brings you closer to where you want to be. It doesn't mean you're going to be doing anything differently. You're just sort of removing that fear, because there's a lot of work behind it. There's a lot of work to put numbers together and look at what you value and where you want your money to be, and how do we structure any debt that exists, and all those kinds of things. There's work behind it. But if someone is just today thinking, I want to get moving forward, just get to know your money. Just look at it.
Yes.
And the other thing is, this piece of advice that I find a lot of people give me feedback that it's their favorite piece of advice, or the most effective for them, is if you have something specific that you're saving for. We're in July now, it's getting pretty close to September, but let's say you've got back to school things happening for your children, or even looking further ahead to celebrations at the end of the year. If you know you're going to spend a lot of money there, take a guess at what you might spend. Open up a savings account, it's free, and start moving a little bit of money at a time into that account to save ahead for that, so that you're not using debt and then trying to figure out how to pay it off later.
Yeah.
That's a piece of advice that people find is really helpful when they're trying to put things together.
Yeah.
You
Because
know, the
that money, you don't like, it's not felt as as you put it away.
right.
And you're like, jackpot.
That's right. Right.
It's not felt. Like, it's like, you remember those big, I don't know, maybe some people still have it, but like, it's a jar for your loose change.
Right.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just loose change, and then you're starting to count it out and you're rolling it out. I'm like, I'm a
Yeah.
millionaire.
And it does add up. It does. And so many people will tell me, when we've done a plan together, how relieved they are when they go and make a purchase. They can buy it on their credit card, but they know there's money set aside. It's a plan for it, and they can just do it, and the stress just goes away. Now, it's simplified to say just set up an account and start taking part of your money away, because there's a whole other bunch of stuff that comes behind that. And that's what the plan helps get through. Like, how do I still pay my debt? How do I still buy my groceries if I'm taking a chunk of cash away, right? But if you think you can handle it, then go and do it. You'll be so happy you did.
I love it. So there's a bunch of people right now that are like, okay, let's work together. So how do we do it? How do you do it?
Yeah. So contact me with an email is probably a good start, at kate@balancedcashflow.ca. You can go through my website at balancedcashflow.ca and contact me through my email there. And then just let me know that you want to set up a time to have a phone call, and we'll book a phone call that way. We'll schedule a phone call, and then we'll just start with the phone call, doing a little bit of exploring to see what the needs are and whether my services are right for someone who's looking to change their money habits. And we'll go from there. I will sort of lead people through that whole process and what needs to happen after that.
Yay.
So just Yeah.
There are people watching this that are like, no.
Good.
So I'm so excited. I'm so pumped.
Thanks. Thanks. I find, what I'm doing is different than, what financial advisors do. And in fact, a lot of financial advisors refer their clients to me because I help their clients, and then that helps the financial advisor ultimately. But I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, just I guess that people find me through their financial advisors. And in fact, I had someone who was referred through an insolvency trustee. They didn't have debt other than their mortgage, and they weren't in trouble, but they just didn't know where to look. And I think because there isn't yet quite an industry flowing of people who just do day-to-day money management, it's challenging. So I'm hoping there are people out there who go, hey, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, definitely. And something I'm going to be starting in September, because I'm going on a year-long journey about finances and investing and mindset and all the rest of it. And I'm like, well, it's more fun to do it with people. So I'm getting a group of people to come here starting in September. It's going to be a bit of a book club.
That's fantastic.
So we're going to read a book, and I'm going to call it Financially Fierce Females.
Awesome.
Because for me, it's like, I want to change the narrative for ladies and money, and really let's get empowered and let's get fierce about it. I love financial ladies that are just like going down,
I think it's so wonderful when women can get together and talk about those things, dispel the myths, and realize that they're just like their friend. We create so many ideas around what other people are doing with their money and how much better they are at it and how they're able to make more of it. And it's just not true. And when we can start talking to each other to share what our challenges are, it just feels so much more powerful when we can get the lies out of the way and just really get to the truth of what's happening. We can then start to change. So I love that. I love what you're doing.
And it's something that I actually noticed, like a cultural difference from the UK to Canada. Canadians are very reserved with their money. In the UK, no one has a problem telling us how much they're in debt. Everyone's in debt over there, and everyone shares it. And okay, way beyond their means, and it's like, yeah, okay, and it's very transparent about it. But I know over here, before I moved to the UK, I'd always be like, how do they have so much money to have this and this and this and this? And then it's really like asking the questions that I realized, oh, there's a veil. And it's like looking at an Instagram account and like, oh, they have everything figured out. And then you get to know them. You're like, oh, maybe not. It's like all of us, right?
Yes.
The image versus the reality.
Yes.
Once we start sharing each other's reality, that's when the potential, it really starts in which to grow and I love community and doing it all together and realizing that we're not alone in this.
Yeah, I love to hear how that journey goes. And I think it's really fantastic. Such a great service for the people that will come into that group.
And I probably will ask you if you want to come or do a little video Skype to teach us I'd
love to join in and visit that group.
Yeah.
That would be great.
You would. I thought you would. Okay, 2 more questions and I'll wrap up. A fun fact about yourself.
This is a challenging question too, right? Because I don't know, for me anyway, I struggle looking at myself and saying, well, what do I, but I'll have to say thanks to a friend of mine who kind of called it out for me years ago. He said to me, you have an overdeveloped sense of justice. And I thought, okay, is that your diplomatic way of saying I'm controlling? But I'm just owning that and saying, no, it's my ability to champion a cause. And if I can I'll tell you, as far back as I can remember that this started for me, I was in grade 3 in the 70s. And our class was out practicing for a track meet, and it was a hot day. And the boys had taken their shirts off because it was hot. And I looked at that and thought, hey, I have nothing more than they do. I should be able to do that too. So I asked my teacher, female teacher, and I had my argument ready because I thought for sure she's going to say absolutely not. And so I said, can we take our shirts off too? And she thought about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she didn't say no right away. And then she said, I'm going to ask the boys to put their shirts back on. And I was like, yes, that makes me so happy. So, so, you know, I just, equality back in the 70s, and I was 9 years old when I had sort of championed that. So I think, I don't know whether, I probably have to attribute that to my mom and her teachings, but that's sort of been, that overdeveloped sense of justice, I guess, has been with me all along. And so I've worked at women's shelters. I've worked in children's places, Big Sisters. My last role, I was with Victorian Order of Nurses supporting seniors. And so that's kind of led, I think, to this place where I feel like we are not being told the truth by those institutions that are taking our money. And I'm just ready to share that, to out that, so that people can understand and take control of their own money. So I think that's followed me. So I loved that my friend had stated that as an overdeveloped sense of justice.
I love that, and that is one of my favorite fun facts ever. Just imagine that. Right. I love that. That's so cool.
Thanks.
My last question for you. I'm a futurist. I love thinking about the future. So what does the future look like for you, and what do you want? So, and I think this is a really good way to share, like, what do you want in your, and let's talk more about your business so that we can help you get there.
Mm-hmm.
What would you love to be doing like 5-10 years? Is it the same, just more people? Is what book? I don't know.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, I love the one-to-one. And I know, you know, when you talk about business models and, you know, you can reach more with the one-to-many, but what I'm doing right now and what I'm really good at is strategy. And so that lends itself much better to the one-to-one situation. I find not everyone has the same debt situation. Not everyone has the same, you know, financial situation. And so it's challenging in a workshop to lead people through something that can be really more effective on an individual level. So I love that one-to-one, and I want to keep doing that. I don't know, maybe down the road I'll really come up with some effective ways to put that into a workshop, or maybe to help people in an online situation. But right now I really like the one-to-one. So my plan at this point is to stick with that and to just reach as many people as I can who need me, to continue on and help coaching people in that one-to-one and getting them to where they need to be or want to be with their finances.
Perfect. So essentially we just need to get the word out.
Just get the word out. Just let people know that I exist, that this actually exists. And, you know, as I had mentioned earlier too, an advisor had contacted me yesterday. Clients had said to them, you know, we're struggling with getting our budget together and stuff. Is there anybody that does that? So people just don't know that it exists outside of a financial advisor. And financial advisors don't love doing that. They don't have time to do that. So yes, I'm here. Just share, and I hope to reach those people that can really benefit from what I offer.
Perfect. Okay. And I'm thinking I'll probably invest in you down the line.
Well, just send me a message, Jen.
I know.
We'll have our conversation.
We'll work together. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you.
Yay. Anyway, so I thank you so much. I'm so excited to post this video and for everyone to watch it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen, for doing this. I think it's really great that you're boosting women up and giving them a place to share the things that they do. It's just wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And we will share all your details on my website, and we'll post this. And I'd love it if you become like a consistent contributor to the Ladies That Lead group.
Wonderful.
That will be a good spot for people to hear from you. You do videos, any sort of your blogs and things like that. Every time you do something, fire it on that group, so that group is really about the rising tide lifts all boats.
Wonderful.
And so as we share and, you know what I'm saying.
I do.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And
thank you, Jen. Have a great day. Bye.